Welcome to Ripped from Reddit. I'm your host Daniel. Which villain do you feel sympathy for? Sandman from the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man series in the third movie. He just wanted to save his remaining family. Don't agree with his methods, but do agree with his reason. That scene, after he gets turned into Sandman, where he is trying to pull himself back together is like one of the most beautiful scenes ever. The visuals, the music, the sadness, it gives me chills every time. You can see in his face so scared he is of his transformation. He desperately wants to stay normal, but no matter what he tries he just can't. The fear and sadness in his sand eyes really got me. Low-key in the first Thor movie. He then turned into an anti-hero of sorts. Not a villain, but he is certainly a villain in the first movie. Dude just wanted his father to love him as much as he loved Thor. Then he finds out he was kidnapped from the Frost Giants and raised in a lie. I feel like Odin is the real villain for that family. Yeah, then he gets called on his bullshit and has a heart attack or something and sleeps until everything blows off. Anytime a romantic comedy features a story of a guy or girl meeting someone who is already in a relationship, I always feel bad for their soon-to-be ex. Think Sweet Home Alabama, even when the ex gets painted as a nagging woman or a guy who works all the time, etc. I also hate the idea of there only being one right person for each of us being romanticized like that. I think love is just as much about making a choice as it is about the chemistry. Mr. Crocker, he's a mentally unstable man who lives with his mother and takes loans to build lairs underneath the school and is tormented by a kid who looks like a beaver and the one thing he dedicates his life to do exist. But every time he is close to proving it he fails and looks more crazy in the time he stopped. Believe sign in fairies. After seeking help he had to be driven back into madness because he powers a large percentage of fairy world. And remember, Cosmo and Wanda were originally his. Which means he was driven crazy when they left and weren't supposed to let him go crazy because they let him remember they existed unintentionally. As a result he becomes the power source for fairy world and has to stay crazy. All the man wants is to finally be right so he can be happy. Edit. Quick Google of Fairly Odd Parents March 15th yields the answer. It's season 3 episode 21 titled The Secret Origin of Denzel Crocker, so anyone who doesn't remember now you can go find and watch the episode. The fact that he had fairies, to begin with, meant that his life was shitty enough to qualify in the first place. Yep, and they made it worse in the end. I mean, think about it. We have no idea who his father is, so he might not have even admin or known him. His mother was clearly incredibly neglectful. He was a smart kid, but he was picked on constantly and had no friends besides his fairies. You could argue that his early life was worse than Tim is even. Mr. Freeze. Pretty much. He doesn't even want to destroy the city like a maniac. He really wants to do is just save his wife. Until the New 52 comics ruined him and made his wife not really his wife but someone who was frozen decades earlier and whom Freeze became obsessed with while studying. They turned a tragic villain into just another typical Gotham madman. Magneto, Holocaust survivor turned super powerful mutant who is always trying to protect his people so they never have to go what he went through in the camps. Edit. Thanks for the gold, my fellow human. I think X-Men First Class did an incredible job at portraying Magneto's background. He started out only wanted revenge against the Nazis who murdered his mother and his people and also tortured him. As he grows up and witnesses/faces more discrimination against mutants, his goal becomes revenge against all humans. In his own way, he has always tried to protect the marginalized, oppressed people like him. Dracula from the Netflix Castlevania series. Dude lost his wife to religious fanatics after he rediscovered his humanity and had to fight and nearly kill his son, the only thing in this world that Lisa left him to remember her by. I don't know about you, but that was pretty much what sold me on the Netflix series. They completely changed Isaac, and it was fantastic. Dracula's relationship with him was so great. Baby doll from the old animated Batman series. She was stuck looking young forever, and it broke her down. She actually cried in Batman's arms because of it. We also can't forget Scarface's ventriloquist. He wasn't in control of Scarface, since Scarface himself is another personality part of him. I feel bad for him. Yeah, the ventriloquist always felt like the villain who most needed and could be saved at an asylum. Frankenstein's monster. In the book it's astounding how much of a jerk Victor is. Isn't that the whole knowledge is knowing Frankenstein is the doctor, wisdom is knowing that Frankenstein is the monster thing. Knowledge is power. Frankenstein is Bacon, the boyfriend Ken from the B movie. I think Quentin Reviews said it best when he said that, basically, Ken plays both the movie's antagonist and the straight man. I mean, sure, he's a bit douchy, but he's just a guy, and he's justifiably weirded out by the situation, and rightfully mad that his girlfriend doesn't want to hang out with him anymore because of a bee. Yeah dude, I think most people would be upset if the person they wanted to spend time with wanted to be with a bee instead. The Grinch specifically, and how the Grinch stole Christmas. Poor guy moved to the top of a mountain with his dog to get away from it, and a fucking Ryan Holmesville development moves in, and the poor Grinch can hear all that bullshit echoing in the valley. Plus the hoss are all about that holiday consumerism, which is kind of gross. Dr. Doom usually has portrayed just as a classic villain. Someone that wants to take over the world, kill the heroes, etc. But the reason he wants to do it is what's kind of interesting. There was one comic where his kingdom of Latveria invades the kingdom of Wakanda. The Panther god gives him a test Ike, and he ends up passing the test because his reason for wanting to take over the earth is pure. Has been traveling through alternate timelines, and in every single one except one, human is wiped out in the future. The only future where humanity survives is one that is brought to order under his rule. Kind of a personification of the question, do the ends justify the means? Edit. Thanks guys for these nifty metals. First time getting these. Megamind. But I guess that's the point. Megamind has such an interesting perspective on who is good and who is evil. Metroman is good because it gets him attention and fame, which he loves. From his childhood he gets everything he ever wants and loves it, then moves on to being a superhero to get more fame and popularity. Then when he gets sick of that, he just abandons it despite knowing full well that he's leaving all the citizens at risk. So in the end Metroman isn't really good. He doesn't care about the safety of the citizens or doing good, just the fame. Megamind is raised in a jail by criminals who teach him to be bad, but he still tries his hardest to fit in and get along with others at school and not be bad. When that doesn't work out, no matter how hard he tries, he turns to the only thing he's good at, being bad. Then when the time comes he actually turns good, not because of fame or fitting in, but because of his own morality. Even as a villain he never truly tried hurting anyone. He just wanted to essentially put on a show and maybe one day beat Metroman. He didn't even intend for his plan to succeed when he finally did win, and was shocked and disgusted at the thought of having killed someone. Titan is good at first because he thinks it'll get him girls, but when that fails he uses his powers to do what he wants and becomes a tyrant because he no longer has a reason to pretend to be good. The Ice King. Please forgive me for whatever I do when I don't remember you. This magic keeps me alive, but it's making me crazy, and I want to save you, but Hoss gonna save me. Please forgive me for whatever I do when I don't remember you. Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin. Outstanding actor. Nobody else could have humanized the character like he did. He also smashed a guy's head in repeatedly with a door for no real reason. Azula from Avatar: The Last Airbender. She was brought up to be her father's tool in the war, and in the end, that broke her. Nebula from Guardians of the Galaxies. She was literally abused by Thanos, and I don't know why, but I want to be her friend. She seems so depressed, and I want to cheer her up. I absolutely love her, and was so happy to see her making friends and becoming part of the team in Endgame. Plays paper football with Tony Stark. Sharpay Evans from High School Musical. Sure, she was a bit of a bitch, but she had reasons to be. Troy and Gabriella were late to the first audition, hardly prepared and still got a call back, unlike Sharpay who had been responsible, worked hard, and been on time. In the second movie, Troy's an absolute dick to her. She offers him connections and tries to get him a better future on the simple conditions that he hangs out with her and sings with her. She works hard for everything, and while she can come off as rude, she always comes around in the end to be a good person. She knows what she wants, and she isn't afraid to do what it takes to get it. There's a bunch of other stuff too. With that, I conclude my essay. Edit. I admit it, the film theory video inspired me to think of Sharpay Adrian Tomzaka the Vulture from Spider-Man: Homecoming. He starts off as a small business owner cleaning up the mess that the Avengers left after the destruction of New York, and then loses that job because the man who was partly responsible for the mess in the first place steals the job right from under him. And instead of turning to revenge and becoming some kind of anarchist, he becomes a weapons dealer to pay his mortgage and take care of his employees. In fact, his whole motivation is to provide for his wife and daughter. Dr. Doofenshmirtz's own brother is a fucking achievement. His mom values kickball over her own son. His dad made him be a garden gnome and stand outside of their home with their neighbor. I do not blame Dr. Doofenshmirtz for being evil. The shit he went through, who wouldn't be evil? Bruce from Finding Nemo. Even as a kid I was able to understand the allusion to dealing with addiction despite wanting to be an upstanding member of society. Interesting take. I never really viewed him as a villain, more like an ally that had a dark side. I felt more sympathetic towards him because he really didn't have control over the matter and was doing what he could to control himself. Fuck, I feel incredibly stupid now for not seeing that it was supposed to be like an AA meeting for sharks. Tai Lung from Kung Fu Panda. He legit trained his whole life to become the dragon warrior, but he didn't. Then threw a fit of rage, and they built a prison specially for him, then got sent to the other world for eternity. His whole life he chased after a dream, and never got it. But isn't that the reason that he couldn't be dragon warrior? He was physically capable, but mentally and emotionally, he wasn't ready to be the dragon warrior. But Pio wasn't physically, mentally, or emotionally ready either. He had to go through a horrid state of training to become the true dragon warrior. Draco Malfoy. He deserved the redemption arc that Snape got. He was a child, and he didn't really have a choice about joining the Death Eaters, because his whole family was part of it, and he didn't have anywhere else to go. And, ick now, Voldemort killed him. Draco grew up, and became better than he was before. Plus the only reason he planned to kill Dumbledore is because he was under threat of his entire family being killed if he didn't. He was a terrified and brainwashed child. I honestly hate so much that he didn't get a real redemption arc. Am I remembering wrong, or did they have a friendly meeting at the station in the epilogue? They did not speak, but politely nodded to one another. That lady from Chicken Run. She was vilified for daring to try to start her own business. Besides, eating the chicken that doesn't make eggs seems like the wise thing to do in a farm. Mrs. Tweedy, the chickens are revolting. Finally, something we can agree upon. My favorite joke in the movie. Plankton lol cause he sucks. But he went to college. How does Plankton pay his bills if no one buys anything from the Cum Bucket? Edit. The Chum Bucket. I apologize to the employees of the Chum Corporation. Syndrome from The Incredibles. The guy was rejected by the one he looked up to the most and tried to rid society of this false sense of needing heroes to do what anyone could if they had the technology. Thanos levels of sympathy for wanting the best for everyone, but messing everything up by having a twisted way of doing so. My theory is Syndrome was a super intelligence, so an outcast from normal people and not a member of Super's club. Makes sense. He was able to make functional rocket boots at like 10 years old without accidentally killing himself.